Hey, I'm facing a moral dilemma right now and I'm not sure what to do. I've turned to Reddit for advice because I can't discuss this with my friends. It's too personal. My family, well, they just worry, and they've got enough on their plate already. So here I am seeking advice and maybe a bit of emotional support. I'm 35, male, and I've been married to my wife, 32, for 6 years. We were together for 4 years before tying the knot, and we have a wonderful 5-year-old daughter together. My wife works at an event management firm, and I'm a software engineer, so we're financially stable. Things were great in our marriage until last year, when my 60-year-old father was diagnosed with leukemia. It hit us all suddenly, and we were all taken aback. My wife was my rock during that time. She stood by me and assured me she'd always be there, and she was. But these past few months have been tough for us, both financially and emotionally. We've found ourselves arguing frequently, with nearly every conversation turning into a disagreement. As a result, we've been avoiding each other for days. Luckily, my parents have managed to cover their medical bills on their own. Still, my brother and I chip in every month to ensure they don't deplete their savings. They're retired, so we're committed to supporting them without letting them exhaust their resources. They're firm about not letting us pay off their bills, so we help out by buying their groceries, covering gas, and handling other small expenses. It's manageable for us since my brother and I earn enough to comfortably get through the month. I've also been setting aside money for my daughter's college fund since she was born, following the tradition my parents started with my brother and me. It's something I'm dedicated to continuing for her future. After setting aside money for my parents and my daughter's education and covering our own bills, my wife and I don't have much left for the kind of lifestyle she's accustomed to. She grew up in wealth, whereas my parents were middle management, enough to provide for us, but not for extravagant trips or lavish parties. We did enjoy that lifestyle for a while, but it made saving difficult. At the time, my wife wasn't focused on saving for the future. She was enjoying herself, as was our daughter. I chose not to bring it up and indulged in vacations, clothes, gadgets, you name it. In the past few months, I asked my wife to cut down on unnecessary expenses a bit so we could save more for the future. My dad's diagnosis had scared me. He was a healthy man who rarely even had a cold, and suddenly he needed frequent hospital visits. This could happen to any of us, so I wanted to stop wasting money and start saving. I wasn't trying to be a miser. I just didn't want to live beyond our means anymore. My wife didn't like my decision, but she tried to stick to the budget I set for the first few months. Things went smoothly at first. However, in the last couple of months, she started slipping back into her old spending habits. When I gently reminded her about our budget, she got mad and said I had no right to tell her what to do with her money. That was fair. We've always tried to keep our finances separate. So I didn't push the issue further. She's right. Her job, her salary, and her money are hers. I can advise her, but I can't control her. Besides, I had enough on my mind with my dad's health and my workload. I didn't want to fight that battle too, so I let it slide. For the last 2 or 3 months, my wife has been spending her salary freely. I haven't stopped her either, but last week she threw herself a lavish birthday party. I was stunned she managed to pull off something so big. She does work in event management, so she probably got discounts from her contacts, but even then, it seemed expensive. I knew what she earned, and although it's a decent amount, I knew she couldn't afford such a fancy party with so many guests. She also bought us a surprising number of gifts. She got me a new tux from a luxury brand and bought matching diamond earrings for herself and our daughter. I couldn't imagine where she got that kind of money from, but I decided not to ask. I didn't want to get yelled at for no reason. She doesn't take money from her parents on principle, and definitely didn't ask me for money. I assumed she must have saved up enough somehow and was spending her own money. It took a lot of effort, but I didn't ask her anything about the money she used for the party and the gifts, and she didn't tell me either. We didn't discuss it further. 2 days ago, I was told that I was being promoted. This means a better position in the company, my own office, and most importantly, a significant raise. I was thrilled, but that didn't last long. Just as I was about to call my wife to share the good news, I received a call from the bank. They informed me that my daughter's college fund had been drained, leaving only $50. She had spent almost all of it in the past few months. We've saved a little over $20,000 over the years, and now it was nearly all gone. The bank told me they had been trying to reach my wife, but she wasn't answering, so they called me instead. They asked if I wanted to close the account. I knew immediately where the money for all her recent gifts, parties, and expensive purchases had come from. I was stunned that my wife would do such a thing. We hadn't discussed our finances in months because she insisted on keeping everything separate and didn't want to follow my budget. I didn't push her on it. However, we had both been putting money aside for our daughter's college fund. It was non-negotiable. Never in 100 years would I have imagined that she would use that money for her own extravagant lifestyle. Both of us had equal control over that account, and we trusted each other to consult before withdrawing any funds. Neither of us had ever broken that unspoken rule until now. She had used the money just for some fun, and I couldn't let that slide. When I got home that day, I confronted my wife about what I found out. Instead of apologizing, she doubled down and started yelling at me about how I handle our finances. She called me a miser who only cared about the future, accusing me of ruining the present for both her and our daughter. She said I never let them have any fun or blow off steam because I was always paranoid about money. She justified her actions, saying our daughter enjoyed the party and loved her gift. She reminded me that whenever we loosened the purse strings in the past, we had a great time. She had no regrets about what she did and insisted it was time we resumed our old lifestyle, spending money freely instead of hoarding it unnecessarily. I don't agree with her for many reasons. The first is that I have never denied my family the joys of life. I want to save money, but I've never been a miser, despite what she's been accusing me of. I've always agreed to buy whatever my family has asked for to make them happy. However, as my daughter gets older, expenses will rise. I simply asked my wife to be a bit more cautious about how she spends money. In case of emergencies, we shouldn't be caught unprepared. I wanted her to be careful with her money. I don't agree with her ideology of not saving at all and living only in the present. To me, that comes from a place of privilege and isn't practical in the long run. Many things could go wrong, and even if they don't, it's wise to have some savings instead of spending all our money just because we're young and want to enjoy life. We're not even that young anymore. I'm in my 30s and my wife is a few years behind. We have a daughter to think about, so we should be putting some money aside for her future. I'm not saying we should save all our money and never spend anything now, but at least 15% of our income should go into savings. I'm already helping my parents out, and I haven't asked her to contribute anything. The least she can do is not dip into our savings for our daughter. I think that's a reasonable demand, but my wife just wants to blow it all on expensive vacations, parties, drinks, restaurants, and clothes. It's fine once in a while, but we're not millionaires who can afford it every other day. That's definitely what my wife seems to believe. I've never been the kind of man to impose my beliefs on someone else, especially my wife, because I don't want to come off as controlling. But I think it's about time I make it clear to her that once you get married and have kids, you need to think about your family and put them before yourself. That's just how it is. She can't just do whatever she wants and spend an exorbitant amount of money to show the world that we're rich. It wasn't even her 21st birthday. She's literally 30. It's just not okay, and I can no longer turn a blind eye to her spending habits. Out of anger and frustration, I showed her the email my company had sent me about the promotion. I told her that now that I was going to have a better paycheck, I'd start saving for our daughter's college fund again, and this time I'd do it all on my own. I told her she wasn't going to get even a single penny from me now, no matter what happened, since she didn't believe it was important to consult with me before spending such huge amounts of money on unnecessary things. She got upset when I said our finances were going to be totally separate moving forward and accused me of being egoistic just because I got a promotion. I don't understand why this is wrong because a few months ago, my wife told me that what she did with her money was her business. So, naturally, I thought what I did with my money was my business too. Ever since we got married, I've been the one taking care of all the family's expenses because I earn more. My wife would only spend on herself and occasionally buy things for us, but she never contributed to the monthly or daily expenses. That was all on me. For years, I've been paying all our bills, setting aside money for our future, and ensuring my wife and daughter had the comfort they were used to. I could afford it, and I wanted to give them everything. But my wife couldn't see all that and accused me of being a miser because I wasn't extravagant. Her money was her money, but somehow my money was our money. I'd had enough, so I decided to change things. Now the cost of living would be split equally between us, and she had to contribute because I was tired of her entitlement. She's not happy about this at all. She says I'm being horrible to her just because I make more than she does, and that I'm making a big deal out of nothing. Right now, I don't think this is nothing. On one hand, she says she regrets what she did, but on the other, she says stuff like this, and it's messing with my heart. Am I wrong for telling my wife she has to start contributing to the family's expenses, even after I get a raise, especially after she drained my daughter's college fund? Update. Hello, everyone. I read through the messages and comments, and I think I made the right decision. A lot of people have advised me to file for divorce, but unfortunately, that's not a feasible option. My wife and I have been together for a long time, and even if I could set my feelings aside and file for divorce, there's still my daughter to think about. I don't want to deal with a custody battle right now. Of course, if things get too bad and my wife refuses to change her ways, I've reached a breaking point. Her financial decisions are affecting me badly. It's been 5 days since our argument, and we haven't spoken since. Our daughter is upset with our behavior, but this time, I'm not going to be the one to make things right. I did mess up, so I don't feel like I owe her an apology. She does, along with a promise to change her ways. I've had enough, and I'm putting my foot down. After years of tolerating this, I finally spoke to my family about it. They sensed something was wrong when I visited 2 days ago, so I ended up telling them everything. I explained how my wife drained the college fund I had been saving for years. She had no right to do that, and my family was shocked. They assured me that I was being fair and reasonable, considering what she did was really selfish. My dad insisted I speak to his lawyer for advice in case things go south. I haven't done it yet because it feels like a betrayal I can't come back from. But seeing my wife's nonchalant behavior right now, I might have to do it sooner than I thought. I've worked hard to get where I am today in my career, and I'm not going to let her take over my life. I'm very upset about all of this. I tried to give her a chance to apologize and make it work, but I can't go on like this without knowing if she'll ever change. So if she doesn't talk to me and make things right in the next 3 days, I'll file for divorce. I won't let myself be taken for granted anymore. Update 2. I told my wife that I'm going to file for divorce today. 6 days have passed, and I've been trying to build up the courage to leave. Now I finally feel like I can do it without feeling guilty about putting my daughter through this. With her best interests at heart, I know I need to end this marriage. Things aren't going to get better, and I've spent enough time waiting for my wife to turn things around. I told her that I'd already spoken to a lawyer and that I was moving out by tomorrow. She didn't take it well and was quite hysterical when I said I wasn't going to change my mind. She apologized and said she'd changed, but it was too little, too late. My wife was sobbing, and it was really hard for me to remain composed, but I had to power through it somehow. Luckily, my daughter slept through it all since I did it after her bedtime. My wife tried her very best to persuade me to stay, but I just can't do this anymore. Our differences are irreconcilable, and I also mentioned that she had more than a week to talk things through with me. She chose to ignore me and avoid the conversation, and now it's just too late for us. She brought up how difficult this would be for our daughter and suggested we go to a marriage counselor. Unfortunately, it was for my daughter's sake that I had to make this difficult choice to leave my wife. I reminded her that she spent all the money in the college fund and refused to apologize for it. I don't think it's best for us to stay together. When I brought this up, she got defensive, which only confirmed what I already believed. She was never going to change. It was time for us to split up and start living the lives we actually wanted. Staying together would mean constant compromises, and I was tired of being the only one making them. We fought about it for a while, but eventually she gave up and locked herself in the bedroom. I'm sleeping on the couch tonight, but I've already packed my stuff and will move into a hotel tomorrow until I find a place for myself. I haven't talked to her about it yet because she's still processing everything I said today, but soon enough, I'll bring up the custody arrangement for our daughter before we get into the legalities. Update 3. Almost a month has passed since I filed for divorce. The first couple of days were very difficult after I moved out, but I think I'm getting the hang of it now. The first week was the worst because my wife was inconsolable and called me every day, trying to get back together. When crying didn't work, she tried to guilt-trip me, saying she always stuck by me, especially now that I got the promotion. I wanted to stop needing her, and we both knew that nothing she was saying was true. But I let her vent because we were both hurting. I didn't want to ruin our relationship entirely since we still have to co-parent. My daughter is still very young and needs her mother as much as she needs me. It broke my heart last weekend when my wife dropped her off. My baby girl told me she misses me every day. It shattered me, but I had to do what I had to do. I hope that one day she'll understand why her mother and I separated. The search for a house has been going well. A few days ago, I found one close to my workplace and relatively near our old house. The rent is affordable, so I'm planning to move in within a week. I'll have my daughter for half the week, and my wife will have her the other half until we find a better arrangement. It's been really hard for me to adjust to this new life. In my weak moments, I've considered going back to my wife for the comfort of our old life. But I managed to stay on track, control my urges, and focus on the future. My family and friends have been incredibly supportive. My dad especially has been great to talk to. I make it a point to speak to him for at least 10 minutes a day. His health is slowly improving, which is something to be happy about. Thank you to everyone here for being so kind and helpful.